any policy made without considering or taking into account those things would be redundant. Otherwise, they would be ineffective policies, right? They won't have any real life application, all right? So, we will just go through this. I actually wanted to invite several psychologists and several counselors to come and speak about this subject, but most of the people seemed very reluctant because they have thought about peace in that area as a subject, and unfortunately even in Sri Lanka. So, this is an invitation to all the scientists, all the doctors out there to get involved in peace building and don't let lawyers run all the shows. Okay? I am a lawyer and I respect my profession, and there have been very wonderful lawyers throughout history, but something that we have to understand is that lawyers are trained to win arguments, and winning arguments do not necessarily provide solutions. Winning an argument is different from coming up with a solution. You can win a case and go home, but the solution, the problem will still be there. All right? So, the people who have been trained to understand problems objectively, all right, look at problems objectively and find solutions for them are scientists, doctors, engineers, not lawyers. Lawyers always have to pick a side. We are always biased from the very beginning. All right? So, this is a general invitation to all the science kids as well here. Get into policy making, get into the parliament, all right? Get actively involved in day-to-day life of like governing people, regulation, legislation, right? This is a fundamental important thing, right? That otherwise people like us, lawyers, would have to talk about psychology, all right, which is not ideal, all right. So, let's go to this situation, all right. This is a brief presentation about the nature of the mind, okay, and the nature of violence and the nature of peace. Let's look at whether humankind is doomed to be at war with one another forever, or is peace scientifically possible? Is it possible within this universe according to the laws of the universe? Can we achieve sustainable peace? Let's look at that, right? Sorry again, if you can be very quiet with what you are doing, all right, thank you. All right, why learn about human nature? We believe that in order to nurture, sorry for standing away, we believe that in order to nurture peaceful human beings, we need to understand the first principles and natural laws that govern both violent behavior and peaceful behavior of humans and other animal species, all right. Therefore, we will discuss and demonstrate briefly the evolutionary, biological, neurological and social causes of violent and peaceful behavior, and highlight some obvious patterns, all right, that are often overlooked when designing and implementing policies. We also want to dispel myths and out of date ideas about human nature and behavior, all right. Okay. All right. So, the topics for discussion: nature of the human mind. We will study and we will look at what is the human mind, what are the laws governing the human mind, and what are the mythical theories or out of date theories that are still like very largely used about the human mind. All right. Then the nature of violence, selfishness and discrimination, which I would call the fundamental negative characteristics or behaviors of humanity which leads to violence and war. Then we look at compassion, the nature of compassion, the nature of empathy, morality and rationality, which will be seen as, or which will be interpreted as, certain characteristics of humans which will lead to a peaceful society. All right. Then finally, we look at human behavior essentially and how it is socially and culturally influenced. This will lead to the last panel discussion, where education play one of the key roles in nurturing peaceful human beings. All right. All right. Otherwise, it's too materialistic. But after all, if we just like talk about things which do not make sense, all right. I mean, for example, if we use arguments which we can't prove, or if we use hypotheses which we can't prove, then I don't think any theory would provide any effective outcome, right, implementation of it. So, we have to use the best scientific knowledge available, otherwise the material evidence available to design our policies. So, the human mind, according to modern science, has a physical origin, all right. Our genetics, physiology, neurology and environment give rise to and shape our minds. So, let us go and talk about 3 common myths about the nature of the mind, all right. The first one is called the blank slate theory, which is called in technical terms empiricism, okay. Then the second one is called the noble savage theory, which is called romanticism. We will look at what these things are in detail later. And the final one is called the ghost in the machine theory, which is called dualism. This is very famous. Rene Descartes invented this, but it was like formalized by Rene Descartes, but it has been used throughout civilization from ancient Babylonia onwards, all right. However, science has been building bridges between the worlds of matter and mind. Cognitive science and behavioral genetics are leading the way for us to understand natural origin and behavior of our minds, okay. Now, let us look at what the blank slate theory is. It basically says all humans are born with a blank and neutral minds, okay, and differences in behavior are determined by the environment alone, equal, okay, with a equal and like basically a blank slate, an empty hard drive. There is nothing inside your mind when you are born as a baby. That is the argument that they are making. The reason the blank slate theory is appealing is that it means everyone is truly born equal, and that humans did not have any predisposition to be racist, sexist, antisocial or even violent, all right. The noble savage man, that is another theory. All humans are born with innate goodness. It asserts that all humans are born with only innate goodness, and only society makes them selfish and violent, all right. So, that is the second one. That is the second myth about the mind. The final one is called the ghost in the machine. It basically proposes that all humans have minds that are independent of their physical bodies and the world. Otherwise, they have a mythological or a like something, basically, if you can say, it has an existence beyond the physical realm, all right, beyond the physical realm of perception and understanding, all right, beyond the physical causality of the known universe. Otherwise, it is beyond the physical causality or the laws of causation of the universe, which is also turned out to be not accurate, okay. These theories are no longer valid, but still used in policy making. This is the fundamental mistake that we are making, all right. Let us now look at some scientific evidence that negates them. So, this is very basic scientific evidence. Multiple studies have been done by scientists. I have just extrapolated the most basic evidence that they have found to negate these theories. So, evidence of the role of genes on behavior. Well, let us see how this, especially behavioral genetics, negates these 3 theories. Scientists have determined that there is no such thing as a blank slate, since we are born with certain genes that determine how smart we are, how shy we are, how happy as a person, or for example, how tall we are, what color our skin is, all right. So, those are determined by genes, all right. As for the noble savage theory, this too crumbles under the evidence for genetic personality traits. A number of studies have shown that people inherit certain willingness towards antisocial behavior, such as thievery, violence, heightened aggression. So, it is not merely society that teaches them, all right. Facts like these also contradict the ghost in the machine theory, since identical twins, even grown up will grow up to prefer the same brand of cigarettes, indicating that even such preferences stem from genetics, not from one's upbringing. The best example of this is the identical twins who are separated at birth. Even I have two identical twins in my family, so they also demonstrate these types of behavior. Okay. So, even though they are raised in different environments, they talk alike, have the same aptitude for math and other skills, just as introverted or polite as one another. So, these things say that we have to look beyond these three theories and give scientists due or credit for what they have found. All right. So, another clip, evidence of brain affecting behavior. All right. Neuroscientists have not figured out everything yet about the brain. We are still, science has only recently started looking at the area of consciousness, and this is a recent area of study, actually started in the 1920s onwards. All right. So, we are still figuring it out, but we will figure it out like the law of gravity or the law of relativity. Humankind, we are smart, at least few among us can really figure these things out. So, patients with, for example, now many patients who have suffered brain injury, all right, some kind of brain disease, will show certain like sometimes even antisocial behavior. All right. There have been so many like cases that medical science stands as testimony for this. For example, people with frontal lobe dementia, frontal temporal dementia, lose many unconscious cognitive mechanisms that regulate their social behavior and their ability to form judgments. Okay. Sometimes people who have frontal temporal dementia, who had broken the law, even felt no remorse, right. Given the ineffectiveness of your frontal lobe or frontal temporal lobe, their normal social function is not seen anymore. They behave antisocially, all right. So, then another condition is a very common condition, it's called schizophrenia. People who suffer from schizophrenia, especially because the changes due to the amygdala and like prefrontal cortices, they fail to identify or even recognize some facial expressions, all right. So, you can see there is a correlation between the neurophysiology and actual behavior, perception, and even like conduct, even ideas, even the stuff that you think about, all right. So, then the key message here is that the unconscious mind is the foundation of our social behavior. This is not something that I say, this is what the 21st century science says, all right. So, and various parts of the brain have different purposes. I wish a doctor would have explained this, they would have gone into much more detail. And we have a doctor as well, so we will ask Dr. Alas to explain this a bit more further when we come to the panel discussion. If you may please, sir. All right. All right. Now, what does the evidence ask? This is actually a very interesting area. There's a book called The Hidden Brain. There's a book called The Phantoms of the Brain. There's something called Free Will, the consciousness. These books highlight the latest findings about free will. Do we have something called free will, which is independent from the natural cause and effect of the universe? So, if we can predict the behavior of the moon, all right, if we can predict where the moon will be in another 20 days, that means the universe is predictable. So, we are also made out of atoms. So, otherwise, as Carl Sagan famously said, we are made out of stardust, all right. So, if we are also regulated by the laws of physics, can't our behavior be predicted as well to the letter? Do we have something called free will? These are fundamental questions that scientists are asking and answering, and like very controversial to state this, but it seems like that we have very little free will, all right. We are basically programmed a lot, all right, and we do have the ignorance or the illusion of free will, and it is not, it's a very difficult and different topic by itself. So, we will not wander into that like further. So, are we doomed to our genes? Is everything predetermined? Can we hold people